All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? What's kind of funny is I called this podcast WTF are you talking about? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I very seldom ever swear, which my friends even call me out on, which is hysterical. I don't even, I guess, I don't know. People have been asking me that a lot lately. Like, I listen to your podcast, but you never seem to swear. I do swear. I just sometimes, I don't swear for the sake of swearing. I have to feel that it's the right time, I guess. But for the most part, just a heads up, I like swear words more in a comedic sense. Like if Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor, for some reason, when they swear, or Chappelle, I think when it comes to swearing to scare or intimidate, or I think it's kind of bullshitty. Again, that's just my opinion. But what did I want to call this podcast? Is the question. What was it again? Oh, yeah. What I want to call this podcast is try and make things fun again and an interesting experience. I think that's what I want to call this one because I think I've noticed lately, I've been around a lot of family members, friends, and colleagues as well. And what I noticed is I don't think people a lot of times are having that much fun anymore. And I don't know why. Now, maybe because I started going to Orlando, Florida at 5 years old. And then my father moved there when I was a teenager, young teen, 13 years old, 14, around there. And then I've been basically there, except for a stint. I lived in San Diego for a few years, for a while. But I've been in Florida, Orlando for the most part, which, if you don't know, is the capital of, the tourist capital of the world. It's built around Disney World, Universal, SeaWorld. There's even Busch Gardens, Legoland. There used to be Wet n Wild, but it is really a fun place to be if you like that. Or it could be a nightmare. One or the other. If you like tourism and you like going to parks, if you like Disney, obviously, you're going to love it there. If you hate tourism and you hate the parks, because I've had friends that hated it, that's the worst place to be. But I like it. I'm not going to lie. I love always feeling like I'm on vacation, I realized. I don't know what the hell that is. I think that's one of the reasons I love Florida. And the one thing I realized, too, is with my daughters growing up, my oldest daughter had some physical difficulties. So we did live in Chicago for a couple of years because she had a liver transplant. And she used to cry. Even as a little girl, she tried running away at like 4 years old. She packed up all her bags and wanted to catch a train to go back to Florida. She did not like Chicago at all. I mean, it's not a dig on Chicago. She was just used to Florida. The weather and Disney. And then all of a sudden, you're in Chicago where the weather is obviously a lot different. She's still, I think, afraid of Chicago, especially big cities, because she spent so much time in the hospital, in and out of there. And her health would go up and down, but I was at the point where I had eventually moved back to Florida, and her whole life changed again. She's been doing very well. This isn't a plug for Florida, but when my daughter was sick, I spent a lot of time. I got season tickets at Disney, Universal, Wet n Wild, all these things, because I look back at it now, it almost tears me up. I didn't realize it, but she was so sick off and on that one is I wanted to recover her health, and everybody kept saying you're crazy because of her immune system. She's going to get sick at those places. I was like, listen, that's where she likes to go. That's where I'm going. She loved princesses, both of my daughters. The other one, her younger sister, was obsessed with mermaids. And I said, you know what? We're going to go to a place. They call it the happiest place on earth. And that's where I'm going to spend my time, as long as it's the happiest place for her. And it was. And they caught that whole wave of Pixar, that whole wave of all those movies, along with all the other princess movies. Not princess, well, some were vintage, but a lot of new characters, let's say, were coming in and out of Disney, along with the new Star Wars and Universal. They caught that whole boom with Avengers and Spidey and everybody, and they loved DC too with the Dark Knight. So it was an amazing time in our lives. And I really think that's what saved my daughter's life. And sometimes she'd be so sick and weak, I had to carry her places. To the movie theaters. She loved the movie theater. So it was either the movie theater. When I was in Chicago, the only place she could escape was a movie theater. So I would take her at least a few times a week, even though she coughed a lot and stuff. But I would go during the week, later at night when nobody was there. And she loved Lord of the Rings, and she loved all different types of movies, Star Wars and everything. And whatever movie was out, we'd go 2-3 times to see it. My oldest daughter when she was sick. But, I sometimes look back now. I didn't even realize it was when she was very, very sick at times. She lost so much weight. Like, was this the end, like, for her? Like, was I don't know. I never thought about it, but somebody once brought it up to me. Like, one of my closest cousins said, Rich, man, we kept seeing you take her to the movies. Did you think did you think you were going to lose her? We all thought, like, my family, I think, they never told me this. We thought, especially when she dropped to 29 pounds and lost all her hair at 4 or 5 years old, they thought, she was going to pass maybe. And I never had that. I was just all about the good time. Thank God. But it did hit me later in life. A few years later, after she recovered and everything, I did have a few days where I was in shock. I'm not going to lie, where I was looking at old photos of her, and it looked like a different person. And, even though she was sick, and I had my youngest daughter, who was the craziest, the funnest, I enjoyed, I went truly to have a great time. I used to videotape my daughters, and, that experience is amazing to me. And I still think my daughters we talk about that all the time. When they were younger, all the things we used to do, and we talk about if they have husbands, they're never going to probably do what I did for them or did with them. Well, I was making independent films. I had time, but I also worked with my father so I could set up my own schedule. So besides school, we just lived. I even wrote a screenplay called The DND Factory, which was a life of me and my 2 daughters living as kind of professional tourists. And I didn't mean to get so long-winded on this, but I'm here to tell you. I just like one of these here to tell you things is, there's so many things out there to do in life now, I think more than ever, and we take them for granted. And I just did a podcast previously. It was go do what you want to do, or find time to do it, okay? And I really mean that. But when it comes to your life, if you have kids, if you don't have kids, learn to enjoy things. Even if you've been married a long time, I think we all kind of fall in ruts. Or if you're dating somebody for a while, if you look back at the honeymoon phase, I call it, when you first start dating somebody, it's all a new experience, right? It's all fun. A lot of times you do things that neither one of you have ever done. Some things you might have done, but it's just fun. It's interesting. It's an adventure. And I get also, not everybody lives in Florida. Not everybody's going to Disney. I get it. I travel all over North America. And I visited so many cities and states for numerous amounts of days. If you take the East Coast of New York, I've been there probably a year in my life. You take Canada, I've probably been there a year. I've been in other cities like Chicago, or where, not even Chicago. I lived in California for many years. I know what it is to live in the Midwest to a certain degree. I've spent a tremendous amount of time all over Texas. I've spent a tremendous amount of time in a lot of places. And I get some are really effing boring. You want to kill yourself. Some, for me, that's it. Like if I go to, but there's also a lot of things you can start doing that are really fun and enjoyable. Now, if you find yourself living somewhere, and you got a job and you can't leave or whatever, and you're miserable, right? And I feel like that in the Midwest, I'll be honest. Mine is Chicago because that's where I'm from. But if I'm saying Wisconsin, Milwaukee and stuff, nice. They got some good food, but I'm not a hunter, fisherman, and, it's just not my scene. So I can't live there. If you find yourself at a position where you hate your environment or your surroundings, it may be serious time to find somewhere else to go. And the quicker you do that, I think the better off you're going to be. And I see this a lot with middle-aged guys. I'm going through it with my close friends who've lived in Chicago their whole life, who wanted out. First, they couldn't go out because, they had to go to college. They wanted to stay in Chicago, save some money, in-state school with their parents, whatever the case may be. Or they were dating somebody, blah, blah, blah. They end up staying. Then they get engaged. Then they can't leave. They get married. Have some kids, they can't leave because the grandparents are there, their siblings, the job, and before you know it, they're 50, 60 years old. And of course, they made a living there and they like their life, but they wish they would have left, or they wish they would have a process of leaving. And I think what most people do, and I've done podcasts, especially when it comes to Florida and California and Arizona, I have a lot of family in all those places, they wait too long to go experience a different lifestyle that they've always wanted to live, which a lot of times it's a warm climate. I'm here to tell you, don't wait till you're 70, 80 years old. Because I've seen this my whole life, including my aunts, uncles, and everybody that comes to those type of places, especially like South Florida, saying they get there at 70 years old, 65, 70, their energy level is nothing compared to what it was in the past. They also don't realize, they could have lived a different type of lifestyle, one that they truly loved, being, say, near the ocean, maybe on a boat. Just being able to visit all different types of cities that are in that type of, like going to the Keys. You could go to the Bahamas. I'm using Florida as an example. You could go to Naples. You could go to all these different places where, say, in Chicago, a lot of people would go to Wisconsin Dells. I don't mean to diss Wisconsin Dells, but are you going to compare all the all the cities in Florida, California, maybe even Arizona or places like that, compared to the Midwest, where you're going to go to Indiana, no disrespect, Detroit. If they're not going to, maybe they would compare if that's what you like. But most people wait too long to start doing things they love and experiencing all these things that life has to offer. They kind of get in a rut. But I'm telling you, just learn how to go out and experience things and look at it from a different perspective. Sometimes this is the one thing I will say that I learned in life regarding this. We live in Florida, so I had so many family members coming in from all over the United States that would come and visit us. And all my kids look at my family as the funnest people in the world. They love them to death. And then if they weren't coming to Florida, we would be going to them for weddings, showers, birthday parties, whatever the case may be. It's always fun. And I know we're very fortunate. But the truth was, if they don't know my family living in Chicago, it's not always fun. And what they're doing isn't fun. And I'm not saying life is always going to be fun. But if you look at sometimes, like life in general, it's a lot funner. Then, you can make it fun is what I should say, or you can make it horrific, kind of regardless where you're at. But if you want to start having more fun and experience different things, it's got to fall on you. All right? And I think a lot of people, they allow themselves to fall in the rut because they want to be miserable. They want to make changes to go do things, but they don't do them. And there's always a blame game. It could be their kids, it could be their parents, it could be their job, it could be whatever. But I'm just here to tell you, man, I'm telling you, you can have so many cool experiences and have so much more fun than probably you're already having, regardless. Like I said, if you're living in a place you hate, but if you find the place where you want to live for the most part, I get a lot of people want to live in, say, California, but it's too expensive. All right, we get it. Then you may consider Florida because it's a lot more affordable. I'm just telling you, a lot of people may want to live in Scottsdale, Arizona, hypothetically. And I'm going to tell you something which is funny about Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm just going to tell you Arizona in general. Beautiful place. I have a lot of family in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Beautiful place, but a lot of people, I'm going to tell you something too. This is what I'm going to wrap it up with. A lot of times you think being somewhere else is going to be so much different and so much better than where you're at, which could be the case. But it's funny because my cousins, a lot of them that live in Phoenix, we laugh because people in Chicago think Phoenix is amazing, which it's better weather than there. But a lot of times in Phoenix, of course, there's a lot of things to do, but it's a desert, right? Just a heads up. It's kind of like Vegas too. Tons of stuff to do, right? But after a while, it's a desert. So after you Vegas is extreme, but maybe after you think just because you vacation there, that when you live there, it's going to be the same type of experience. It usually isn't, especially from a financial standpoint. You're not going to usually be eating out as much as you are. You're not going to be shopping as much as you are. You're not going to be doing all these different types of things. Plus, after doing those type of things numerous times, it becomes redundant. So that's something to think about as well. But I kind of think we shifted on this one. This is one of those podcasts where I started in one place, totally went the other, and I don't give a shit. I just go where the energy sends me. But yeah, definitely, you want to pay attention to all those type of things, especially if you plan on moving. But I live in Chicago too, and there's so many different things to do there that I never experienced because I was always miserable because I hated the cold. But there's so many different museums. There's so many different, Jesus, not only museums, there's so many There's so much everything. Architecture. There's so many different, just in general, so many events going on there, so many sporting events. And I've done a lot in that city. Shopping, restaurants. There's a lot of shit to do, man. So, again, just kind of, if you're just bored in life a lot of times, the boredom is because of yourself. And I know because I've been there. I made things boring. So I just thought I would bring that up. If you want to make things more exciting and enjoyable in your life, start finding shit that you want to do and go do it. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, check out my YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of fitness stuff over there. And I do a lot of videos, man, if you like, all over North America. I mean, I've done them in so many different cities and states, not only the U.S., but Canada as well. Even Hawaii I did. So check those out if you like different places. You could just put it. I also do gym videos, gym tours. If you like working out, I could show you what all the different gyms all over North America look like, different restaurants and coffee houses, things in that nature. And yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Take care, and if you're traveling, safe travels.